Okay, great. Thanks very much to Juliet and to Katie there, and I'd just like to say that I've been a BISA fan for many years, and I'd just like to second that it is a friendly and intellectually dynamic association for the study of international politics and related areas. And so for those of you who are interested in this area, both in terms of the kind of the discipline and the intellectual content, then it's really tremendous, and it helped me out a lot in terms of like the early days in my career. So I'm happy to do this revision session, and I can see that a number of you are interested in getting to grips with this. And as Juliet mentioned, I have experience. I started out at Oxford and LSE and did some time at Exeter, and then for the last 10 years I've been at SOA. So I've gone around the block in terms of helping students on revision and exam preparation over a number of years now. And out of that has come different forms of recommendations and tips on this. And I'm happy to answer and to discuss with you any particular queries and concerns you may have on this. Okay, so if you want to just park any questions to the end, and then I'm happy to open things up, because there's always lots of things involved in trying to prepare as best as you can and demystify this process. Okay, and what I want to offer here for next approximately next 40 minutes or so is a distillation of the recommendations and suggestions I have on learning methods that are equipped for the particularities of exams. And I'm going to go into this, that exams can come in different formats now, and have different rubrics to them, and that in itself is one angle that needs to be addressed. Okay, but I thought what to begin with would be great is that if I can just give you at the start some qualities that I see or tend to see in good exam takers over the years. Okay, and I'm going to put this in the form of essential ingredients. Okay, so what I want to say here are 3 essential ingredients for thinking about your orientation towards revision and exams. Okay, and the first one is persistence. And this is necessary due to genuine obstacles that come along in life, and also different setbacks that come up, and all sorts of distractions which completely absorb our world in different ways. Okay, so on this note, in particular, when we speak about distractions, I would recommend wholeheartedly just to try to park some of these distractions on your phone, social media, at least for the time period in which you are concentrating on the revision preparation for the different exams. Okay, I know that this is hard going and everything, but it pays dividends in terms of the ultimate objectives, ultimate prize. So there's something about persistence which is necessary. A second essential ingredient is about calculation. This is necessary because you don't have too much time to prepare. For many of you, most of you, I think the exam is just around the corner now. And also when you get into the exam itself, you don't have too much space to express yourself. Okay, so it's very much kind of getting it in and out fairly quickly. And so your job to adopt the kind of business jargon is trying to minimize risks along the process and try to, as I said, prepare as best as you can. Okay, so we got persistence, we've got a kind of calculating attitude, and third is intelligence. but this is what I've put there as the third most important priority out of three. It's quite often one sees that good exam takers are not the people that you would have expected or would think were the most super intelligent people that were on that module at all. These are candidates that are good at leveraging their knowledge effectively, building on what they have, building on some existing stock of knowledge that they may have built up during the module, and they put the best make the best use of that. Okay, regardless of exactly your pre-existing knowledge and how you are refining it, I would say pretty much for all modules, any module you do that is preparing for an exam, is that in general it is about how you demonstrate command of the texts and the debates that went on within that module. Now, this is something to ask for clarification with your particular module conveners. Some are more open to the prospect of you integrating other texts, other sources, maybe some media sources, etc., etc. Okay, but you've got to clarify how much is considered to be okay. But for most, the baseline is the exam of that intellectual content in that module. Therefore, you need to be showing evidence of your command of the texts and debates that have gone on. Okay, so I'm going to take these three essential ingredients and I'm going to reprise them as we go through the other recommendations and tips I have. Okay, so let's keep these in mind. Okay, now for many of you, you'll be kind of probably no doubt kind of underway in revision and preparation, especially if you've got things coming up this month. Okay, but there are some even so there are some first steps I think that are important and that to consider as you approach the exam. And the first is about past papers and mock questions related to the course that you're on. Now, some modules that have been in existence for a while, they may have a history of past papers, and I'm going to say it's vital that you have a look at these, okay, and you pull them up and you examine them. Okay, if it's a brand new module, a relatively new module, then I would ask you to inquire into whether the module convener can prepare mock questions in the style of the type of questions that you would have on the exam paper. Okay, and this is to give you some material, and I'll explain why this is very important in a bit, about that you can begin to get a sense of how the exam paper could look like, okay, what it could look like. And then it's to begin the process of considering your interests and your favored topics on that module. Now, often a good starting point for this is if you have done a module in which there's already been some coursework and you've done an essay or done some other assignment in which you've covered one of the topics or two, whatever, in that module, then that is a good place to begin with. Okay, even if you feel like you didn't do terribly well at that essay, whatever, it's a starting point, and this is about the art of leveraging your existing knowledge and putting it to use. Okay, now most of the time, okay, but this requires checking, but most of the time there isn't any cross comparison between the student who tackled a question that was derived from a certain topic in their coursework from deploying that topic again, and that topic knowledge in the exam. Okay, so most of the time you can think about adapting your existing knowledge that you gained through the coursework. Okay, and that may indeed involve if that topic appears in the exam, you are adapting your knowledge to that exam question and under that topic that you have some familiarity on, okay? Just before I go on to this next point is an issue that is always raised, and it's a question of how many topics should I take into the exam with me, okay? And I cannot give you a precise number on this because I can't possibly give anything that makes sense for the variety of exam papers that you have. But all I would say is that you have extremes, okay? So you have one extreme. Quite often every year we'll have a student that'll say, hey, Matt, for this exam that you're going to set, you are asking us to answer 3 questions. Therefore, I'm only going to revise 3 topics. And I say, okay, if that's the way you want to handle it, all I would say under that scenario is that's a bit risky. What happens if that topic one of those topics doesn't appear, or you have a look at the question under that topic and you think, oh, I don't quite like the look of that. I wish I had some safety net, okay? At the other end of the spectrum are those students who say, Matt, there's 12 questions on this exam, therefore I'm going to revise 12 topics or 10 topics. And I say, whoa, how are you going to prepare for all those topics? You know, are you going to be able to give proper coverage of them? Are you going to be able to go into the sufficient depth that you need, you know, in your revision time? So therefore, the extremes are not advisable for different reasons. And therefore, it's somewhere in the middle, okay? It's somewhere in terms of that would give you coverage, you know. What's often quite good is to, if you have got your selected topics, is to, and if the module has been in existence for a while, you can go back, and if it hasn't changed that much over time, you can go back and imagine, like, if you adopted the strategy of these topics for this year, how would you have done if you would have had the exam paper from last year? And then you can imagine, okay, if I had opened that exam topic, I would have been okay. I would have had some options in terms of the questions. It's just one way in which you can check, okay? So I can speak to this a little bit more in the Q&A if anyone's interested, but let's imagine that you've settled on the number of topics you're going to take into the exam, okay? And at the same time that you're doing this, there are all sorts of technicalities regarding the organization of each exam in terms of location. So some exams are take-home exams now, they're online. You may have a certain period of time to prepare for and do the answer. Some are digital based on campus, some are handwritten on campus. So obviously you've got to check the particularities of what it's going to consist of. And then the different aspects about the rubric, the formats that it's going to take, the length of time that the exam is going to take, the number of questions, whether they are going to take a form of a list of questions, whether there is a answer one question from one block of questions, answer the other question from another block, whatever it is. Okay, you've got to have this crystal clear in terms of what is the rubric for the exam, okay? And also maybe if there's any potential materials that can be brought in, okay? Sometimes that is possible, you know, for certain exams, okay? There are forms of advice you get from your module convener, yes, but hopefully there are some good forms of general advice that are given at the university level for wherever you are, and dip into these. You know, they may have forms of tips and suggestions that you hadn't come across, and you may think that there could be something of use there, okay? And the final thing is just to check on the special adjustments that you may have if you have applied for. Now, this comes under very many different types of headings at different institutions about mitigating circumstances or special study policies that you have as an individual student, and that may allow you to take to have extra allowances in the exam, possibly like an extra half hour or something like that. If this is you, check to see what your particular learning or study policy has, okay, that could help you out, all right? So these are all kind of first steps and kind of initial groundings on this, okay? And the second thing to build off this is in terms of these topics, and I've put there, if you can see this themes and scheduling, okay? And this is where we've arrived at our list of topics that we're going to take into the exam, or we're going to be considering for the revision period, and some pointers on how to organize the time that you have left for this, okay? The first thing to know is that every topic, no matter how complex, can be broken down into more manageable themes in terms of manageable chunks and building blocks of knowledge, okay? Now, this is important for different reasons, as I'll explain. And here's just on the side here an example. Okay, so if we look at origins of the First World War, complex historical problem. Okay, and for some, in terms of modern history, this is one of the great questions because it invites a whole range of possible interpretations. Okay. But despite that, you see here what I've done is that I've organized it into 6 building blocks, 6 factors, okay? So despite the complexity of that, we have it broken down into manageable chunks, okay? You can also consider this in terms of, as a technique, can be considered in relation to all sorts of different topics you have. So for instance, if you have a history segment of a module or a particular topic, think about the ways in which you could break down that history into logical divides marked by certain turning points that have a degree of coherence and logic to them, okay? Or you may be thinking about a theory course, IR theory, and you may be looking at certain topics. How can you imagine the strengths and weaknesses of those theory topics? Or in relation to a certain topic that you may have certain key ideas or key authors, okay? Those could be another way, that could be another way to break the knowledge down into manageable chunks, okay? Why am I saying this? I'm saying it because the evidence shows that systematic dividing of knowledge into logical sub-themes and illustrations tends to lead to higher marks, okay? It's also easier to recall in an exam, okay? So to just use this example I've got of the origins of the First World War, you could imagine a question which says something like, the origins of the First World War were principally caused by the militaristic culture amongst leading nations. Discuss. And here we have, okay, they've picked one. They've picked one factor amongst 6, and they've said that that's the focus, that's the answer. Okay, that's where the question is trying to lead you towards. And you say, actually, no, because I've already worked out in my revision, I've worked out that that's just one of 6 possible explanations, okay? And I'm going to give you that militaristic culture, but I'm also going to explain other possibilities, okay? And once you've done that in a bit more of a systematic way, the likelihood is you're going to be in the zone for higher marks, okay? And as I said, it leads to quicker accessing of the information in the exam itself, okay? Now, when you come to the schedule and how you organize the remaining days and weeks you have, this may be something relevant for some people, for some others it's not, but for some people they can have overly ambitious or maybe rigid schedules, and they may get, and that may sometimes lead to disappointment, okay, about the organization of the topics you have. I think it's much better to have a timetable which is breathable, which is able to accommodate the ups and downs. So when I talked at the beginning in terms of persistence of revision, persistence is needed in the face of sticky patches that you have or setbacks that you have in your learning process, and therefore the timetable has to have a certain amount of flexibility to it. Okay. Another thing to point in mind is about concentration levels. Okay, so the exam, okay, is a peculiar artificial environment. You don't enter into exams very often, and they have certain, it's an unusual environment. And one aspect of that unusual environment is that it requires concentration for the duration of the period, often 2 hours, sometimes 3 hours, okay, or some even more. And, if you asked me right now to do an exam that lasts 3 hours, I could do it, but in some respects, I wouldn't do it as well as compared to building up a certain level of stamina for concentrating for that period, okay? So this is what I'm going to say, and I'm going to make this point when it comes to mock questions, is an exam and practicing questions, is that this is part of you making it easier for yourself in the exam. And you make it easier through lengthening the concentration you spend focused on the topics, okay? Obviously, you need some, discipline, a sense of urgency about the matter at hand, okay? And finally, another kind of pointer on your time management is what I call a kind of contemplation time at the end of the day. And this is 5 minutes at the end of the day when you finish your revision, when you're just checking in, or whenever you do your revision, if you finish at 3 o'clock in the morning, whatever is your schedule, okay? And you check in and you say, how did I do today? And how did I get on? What were the pluses? And what were the things that needed a little bit more attention, okay? And this is an important checking process because you'll stand a much better chance of correcting certain issues of the revision process if you correct on a daily basis, okay? Rather than letting things kind of drift and kind of entering into a kind of hopeful state, in which you're hoping things are okay, but what you really want is just a quick check-in to see, are things going on track? Does that timetable need to be a bit more flexible on X or Y, etc.? Okay, and this can be very, very productive last few moments at the end of each day. Okay. There's other things to note on themes on scheduling, but these are kind of some of the key issues, that you can come across. All right, now let's kind of move on. Let's talk about the actual business of actually revising these topics, okay? And actually, you think maybe, contradicting what the focal point of this and the title of this lecture is, that, and this advice session is, I'm not actually going to spend too much time on this. And that's because learning methods are very personal, okay? So what works for one person may not work for another person. There's a lot of different revision and learning methods that you can be adopted. Some people learn by rote. If that's worked for you, if you've got had some reasonably good exam marks in the past, which have been on the basis of that, great. If you use flashcards, if you try to condense things down onto flashcards or smaller bits of paper or documents, that's also a good one. Many people adopt that. There's mind maps. That's another one. I never got into that, but some people swear by that, and it works for them. But for other people, it doesn't, etc., etc. Okay, so learning is very personal, and you should look back to what revision methods you've done and what's worked for you, generally speaking. But I also want you to keep open to the possibility that there could be another more effective method that could be around the corner. Okay, and with the given time and everything, I would not recommend trying too many new things. You may want to try one additional new thing in terms of certain aspects of your revision main techniques, okay? But don't overload, don't try to attempt too many things at once, okay? I think regardless of the kind of methods you use, the one thing that a lot of people do is this kind of shedding paper, or if you do it on the screen, you know, shedding the number of documents that you have, okay? And the gradual condensing of notes under, in your own words, under bullet points, okay? That tends to lead to consolidation, okay? Tends to, for many people, okay? It's a way in which you're removing some of the crutches as you approach the exam, okay? Regardless of the, I would say, regardless of the particular technique and any exam, I'll put my neck out here, any module convener will tend to want to see succinct, concrete examples, okay, to speak in terms of specifics. So you may be talking about a theory, okay, at a higher level of abstraction, but still you need to have some illustrations. How does this theory exactly shed more light on the world than what we would have had if it didn't exist, okay? So succinct illustrations at your fingertips are another way in which you can raise the prospects of higher marks, okay? And it tends to lead to that, okay? Another thing just to keep in mind is that most modules have topics, themes which stand on their own. And quite often those topics, as I've been speaking about, will be replicated in the exam itself they may have a specific question on that topic, okay? At the same time, the world is all about relations and the complexity of relations. So if you are a student that is able to look at the connections between topics and say, actually, these two topics are in a relationship, or these two theories are in a conversation or a dispute with each other, etc., then it means that you are projecting a much more expansive knowledge of the module as a whole. Okay, so it's something to keep in mind, and it may be something that could be a factor in enhancing an exam answer. Okay. Final point on this aspect of recommendations is about consistency. And that is, you are only interested in the highest average mark, and I put there 2 answers, but it could be however many questions you have on the exam paper, okay? So you're not interested in some spectacular first answer, which you may dedicate, you know, too much time on, and then an average or a poor second and maybe third answer, okay? Because that's going to pull your average mark down. It's about trying to be as consistent as possible across the entire exam paper, okay? And that will enhance, again, the prospect that you'll go away with a higher mark overall, okay? It's the alternative boom and crash kind of movement is putting a lot of pressure on you to do well and to receive good marks in that good answer, and that's not the best position you want to be in for an exam. Okay. All right, we've now arrived at the most important revision task, and if you remember anything from this session and the advice I'm giving, it is this. Okay, the most important revision task is mock exam practice under exam conditions. Students who practice questions under exam conditions tend to perform better. It's not just me, it's evidence. Researchers have shown it to be the case. Okay, so this is why I've been emphasizing the need to find your past papers, or if they don't exist, ask your module convener for a selection of mock questions that are covering the content of the module. And it's about practicing those under the conditions that you'll have on the day, okay? Now, quite often, you know, people come up to me and they say, yeah, Matt, I get this point, but I'm not quite ready yet. You know, I'm just getting started with my revision, and I need to get myself to recall, yes, certain aspects of the material, and then I'll attempt a question. I say, fine, that's okay. All I say is find some space for it, okay? And don't leave it out of your timetable before you have the exam. And even if you were to try a mock question now on a topic for a certain paper, and say you only put together half an answer, or you felt, oh, this didn't really work out. It doesn't really matter in some respects, because you are beginning the process, and you are beginning the process of getting your mind in gear for the conditions that you'll face on the day. Okay, so coming back again, the exam space is artificial. What's this doing? This is recreating the conditions as best as you can. Okay, that's what you do as a social scientist, natural scientist. You're trying to recreate the conditions as best as possible, and this is the way that you do it. Okay. Now, if this was in person and not with everyone muted, I would also ask everyone to shout this out to me, that I will practice mock questions under exam conditions, okay? And you can print this out, stick this on your wall, read it like a mantra every day. I'm going to do this. I'm going to practice mock questions. It's the best method for preparing for exams, okay? And it will tend to bring dividends, okay? Okay, let's imagine the scene now that you have had your, it's the night before the exam, and hopefully you've had space to relax. You know, some people have had maybe had alcoholic beverage, 1, not 10, and you get up the next morning, and maybe you have a power song that gets you going. You know, you can tell me this in your own time if you want to enlighten me. You know, in my day it was Britney or the Backstreet Boys, and I play that, and I'm buzzing. I'm ready to go. And you go down to the exam, and you ask the invigilator, and you get yourself set up and then sit it down. And the invigilator says, you may turn the exam paper over. What do you do then? The next step is to analyze the paper, analyze the questions that are on the paper. Now, due to your selection process, some topics are not going to, you're not going to be picking because you have ignored those, okay? So you're zooming in on the topics that you have brought into the exam with you, okay? Some people have a tendency to agonize over the decision-making at this moment, these first few moments. All I can say on that is just try not to, just try to push, make a decision, try to stick to the decision, okay? Yes, you know, you may have some doubt about question 2, or if you're doing question 3 or something like that, but at least be confident to say, I'm at least doing this first question, and then I may weigh up where I'm going after that, okay? Regardless of what the paper looks like, quite often, this is not an ironclad rule, okay? But often in exam papers, there's a question for everyone. This tends to be a big open question that's put at the top or the bottom of the list. And it's along the lines of populism is the best thing since sliced bread in world politics, okay? Discuss. And everyone could say, hey, I could answer something on that, okay? I could give that a stab, okay? And this may be useful for you, okay? This may be useful for you if you have revised for a topic and a question under that topic has not appeared. Check to see if the big question for everyone could maybe, depending on the question, allow you the space to deploy and leverage some of that knowledge you prepared for that topic that was missing. Okay, so this could provide another route in to use knowledge that you had previously prepared for, and therefore is not to be considered wasteful. Okay, all I can say is that you must answer the precise question posed. Okay, and that is that you must justify exactly what is your argument in relation to answering that question. Okay, so the question for everyone may be something which could be useful. Okay, and then we're into the business of structuring an answer, and you may have and certainly do, you have a certain space for, I didn't put this on the slide, a certain space for brainstorming and just sketching out what an outline could be to that answer. Now, I know the challenge of writing exam answers is that you know, you're working out the answer in your head as you're going along. I get that. That happened to me when I was doing it. It's like, you know, I'm trying to figure things out on the spot. Okay, but there's still space for pausing, you know, 5 minutes or so, pausing at the beginning to work out what could an interesting answer be on this. Okay. And I say this is still important for those moments which, say, for instance, you're doing your brainstorming and you get stuck and you think, oh, what else can I say? I'm not getting anywhere. Okay. Now, this is partly where kind of relaxation kind of methods are kind of useful, is just to kind of hold and just pause for a moment and say, I'm just going to pause. I'm just going to think. I'm going to see what's the connections here. Go back to my revision method, revision themes, sub-themes, examples. And even if an answer doesn't come immediately, or a point doesn't come immediately, it may come if you pause for 30 seconds, a minute, okay? Or it may not, okay? Maybe the answer comes in the process of you developing the answer, okay? But the important thing is you're trying to allow space for an answer to appear and to get the best material to come out, okay? Now, when you get into the introduction, is that there are some things that are good for introductions, okay? And the first thing is that it is to try to answer the question or give a hint at what your answer is in the first sentence or two. So you say things like, some people argue that populism is the best thing since sliced bread, but I argue in this essay that there are a number of warnings and drawbacks that one should consider. Great, you know, now the marker is saying, hey, this is good. Now they say that there is one side to the argument and there's another side to the argument that they're going to get to. Okay. Another thing which I think is very good to use and is super easy, and that is to use the language of the question. Okay, pull down the words, the expressions, and make it blatantly obvious to the marker that you've read the question. Okay. And you're going to tell them what the argument's going to be, okay? And then begin to alert them to signposts, okay? And this is where the structuring of the essay then follows through. Now, remember back to when I was talking about revision methods and organizing the knowledge into manageable chunks and themes, okay? This is where it pays dividends, because now, instead of a kind of scattergun effect of, you know, here's 20 points, reader, 20 cent, you know, you work it out how they're organized, okay? You're coming at and saying, actually, there's two parts to this answer. There's the defense of the answer, and then there's the criticisms of the answer. Advantages of this theory, disadvantages of this theory, you know? History period 1, history period 2, okay? Nice and simple, okay? No need for elaborate structures, and it's come out of the revision period in which you've organized the topics into manageable themes, okay, manageable chunks, all right? In which you're, as I put there, demonstrating the reading, okay? And here we come to the most important exam task. And the most important exam task is this: answer the question on the paper. Do not answer the question that's in your head that's a little bit different. Do not answer the mock question that you did the day before, which is different from the one which is posed to you today, okay? Answer the precise question that's posed, okay? And the most common criticism of exam papers that students do is they did well, gave it a good go, but they didn't quite answer the question. Maybe they started on the question and then they veered off, okay? Or they were, you know, in a certain other space and then they arrived at the question, okay? You've got to keep a laser-like focus on the question all the time. You can even do this, a good technique for doing this, for both yourself and the reader, is to finish a paragraph or that you're doing as you're making your way through the answer, and to say, and on the basis of these points and factors, I believe this helps to answer the question, okay? You state it clearly, you know, my argument is helping to answer this precise question, okay? And that helps actually just to keep you focused on exactly what is being asked of you, okay? Why are you doing this? Because it tends to lead to higher marks, okay? And that the answer which is more closely on the bullseye of the question will tend to get higher marks overall, okay? All right, okay, so the final thing that I wanted to say in terms of tips was about style, okay? Now, good English is necessary, okay? You know, there are certain issues that I can raise on standards of English if you wanted to go into that. But what I thought I'd end here is just something about style and little flourishes that may help to embellish the answer a bit more, i.e. may help to give you an extra mark or two, okay? So here's one sentence here. Considering this is a complex debate and I've restricted space, I will critically explore and justify only two factors, whatever they are, X and Y. Actually, you only know two factors, okay? But this sentence here creates the impression that you could go on. You could explore an infinite variety of things, okay? But it's creating the impression that you could do that. In fact, actually, you only have a limited number of balls to juggle, okay? This is you could call this as a sales technique, and it could help to enhance things a little bit. Or you could consider this at the very end of your answer. With these criticisms in mind, the literature would benefit from closer scrutiny of such problems to enhance future scholarship. You have no idea how this can be done. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. This is not a conversation. We're not in the classroom. There's only one form of communication. It's just one shot, okay? And therefore you can put these flourishes, you know, and they may help enhance the appearance, okay? I don't want to overstress this, okay? I don't want you to get in a sense that exams are some sort of game that only certain people can do well at. Not at all. Anyone can do well at exams. You do not have to have some pre-existing technique or method that is only held by certain people. Everyone can do well at exams, okay? And that, with in terms of conclusion, is what I want to stress, that coming back again for the last time, mock exam questions are your friend, and practice is the best way of getting your brain into gear for the circumstances on the day. Even if you just do one or two, it's better than none, okay? And it's the best way. Even if you feel like you didn't do particularly well at a mock question, do it, okay? And just get your head in the groove for what's going to be transpiring on the day, okay? And these are the key ingredients, as I said, about persistence, calculation, and intelligence. Good luck, okay? Adapt as best as you can, and learn from your past exam experiences, and then subsequently learn from the ones that you're going through, okay? That concludes my recommendations and suggestions